Delta 46, just quite to you. YouTubers out tonight. Channel 2 for right now, we've got the auditor out front.
So all units take your fire truck to channel 2 so further notice.
The blinds are shut at the police department. Their top loader's parked outside. The parties that have been trying to get us on film, doing something and causing issues for the city. They're on the sidewalk. I'm going to be back in service. I want to take 1200 Washington.
You guys good?
Yeah, we're good.
Alright.
I'm not going into this by myself. There's a bunch of people just out here dancing around. No one's flagging me down or asking me to come in, so they seem to be having a good time. I'm just going a few more officers here.
Officer, you got any? Yeah, they down that alley, bro.
They're afraid to go down the alley.
Yeah,
you guys want me to walk you up there?
On the opposite side of this piece.
They might need medical aid.
So I want to give us a channel first real quick.
They got a bunch of people in there. These guys are afraid to go in.
You have a lot of people over there as well?
Yeah, they're right in the middle. I don't know if we either want to take this alley and push them north back into Washington, just so that way we don't have anyone on our backside from the north.
I thought you were at I guess it is south one. My bad. Why don't we start from one direction and push in one direction? So I can come over there, or let me just come over there and we'll do that.
There ain't nobody stopping them from doing their jobs and doing a push right now to make sure nobody's bleeding out.
Okay, just turn on your cruise lights or whatever lights and get on the PA and tell them they need to clear the alley, and we'll figure out where the song is coming from, and I'll get out of the way. 135, you said no shooting?
No shooting, they're
I don't
saying.
know. No one's flagging me down like someone's hurt, like they normally would. They just seem to be having a good time. They're pretty much working, so one direction.
Yeah, we're at 106, 108, 110, 112, 112. No one's invited there. Stop walking, no one's
Okay, just with that.
Hopefully nobody shot.
I hope nobody shot, but
One, can you advise on any traffic stop on the right personal light?
They're gonna push them out of the alley, they're saying.
108 South Walnut Street. Priority to Delta 108 South Walnut Street.
Yeah, clearly do it.
if you guys are over here on Walnut from Washington all the way to Western is closed. You might as well not even go down it.
There's a scene right down the street. A bad accident.
In the 1200 block of West Washington, which is what we're talking about today, where 3 people were shot, over 130 rounds were fired by 13 different firearms. So when I said or alluded to a chaotic scene, that's an understatement. There were hundreds of people, including juveniles, in my opinion, mostly juveniles, even high schoolers, even as far away as Penn High School, and I know that for a fact. They were hindering our response to get to the 3 people that were shot, most notably the male who was shot. I can't give you the exact time frame. I have investigators that are in here now, but that's still part of the investigation. And people are going to have to explain why they did what they did, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of what was ingested, liquid or other. No excuse and no reasons good enough to hinder the police from trying to bring aid to victims. Not to mention clearing a path to try to get medics in and get. One person did walk to the hospital or were taken to the hospital on their own, but 2 were still at the scene that we were trying to tend to. And to have the physical resistance and interference, and we had to force our way through, and we had to use measures, and we should not have to do that, but we will when put in that predicament, and we'll win in that predicament. As of right now, we have very, very little cooperation. And when you see this picture, this is just 1 yard. This extends for 4 or 5 yards in each direction, and not counting the north side of the street. So use your imagination when I'm seeing close to 75 to 100 people right there in that one little tiny location. Use your imagination to how many were east, west, south, and north of there. And you know, for to be hundreds of people out there and to get the lack of cooperation that we've gotten so far, that's inexcusable and disheartening, to say the least. Here's the audio from ShotSpotter. You heard over 130 rounds, like I had stated. That's known. 13 different guns. But those bullets had to have come down somewhere, let alone the 3 people who were shot. One of the things that people may not realize, yet again, the hospital had to go on the lockdown. That doesn't affect the emergency room or other people who may need medical attention for other reasons, but medics can't get in, fire department can't get in, and however many people are in the hospital for however many floors there are affected by this. We actually had 36 cars that were dispatched to this one incident. We had to call St. Joe County Police and Mishawaka Police, even though they were busy dealing with their own incident around the same time, which was cause for further lockdown measures to continue. But we also had to call the Notre Dame Police Department too. So I texted Notre Dame Chief and the Sheriff this morning, thanking them for assisting us. But so 36 cars plus whatever they sent, use your imagination, every single car in our city was tied up for something that was so asinine as this. Every time that trigger is pulled, somebody knows other than whoever's pulling that trigger. In this case, we have 13 different people pulling the trigger. So doing my math, doubling that, at least 26 people know about that. Plus you add in the hundreds who are out there, they know exactly how it happened, why it happened, and who made it happen. And we needed to come forward. We're not tolerating this here. I've said it millions of times, 1,000,001. Mayor said it as many, if not more than I have. And neither of us should be here to have to plead to the community to stop something so easy to stop. Stop pulling the trigger. It's that simple.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you for joining us here today. This is a disappointing incident that we've had in our community, and it really is as simple as this slide that you see behind us. Is we need our community to come forward and share information with us. First, when incidents like this start developing, these don't just happen at a snap of a finger. It starts to develop. There are situations that can escalate. So when first and foremost, make sure you report these types of incidents when they start to occur in your neighborhood. Of course, last night would have been more difficult and challenging to identify as an emerging event because of all the fireworks and other things going on for celebrating our nation's independence. But nevertheless, generally speaking, these things don't just pop up, and then an incident like this happens. It builds over time. So please share information with us as incidents develop. But then also, more critically, is if you know who's responsible for violence in our community, come forward with information, whether it's coming and talking to our detectives directly or sharing information anonymously through Crime Stoppers. So we need the information to be able to get these violent offenders off the streets, And the prosecutor's office needs information to be able to charge them and make sure that these violent offenders stay off the streets. So we need the community's help. We need the information, whether it's directly or anonymously. Please come forward and please make sure our neighborhood stays safe.
Yeah, I think before any questions, just briefly, the mayor hit on something. So you see something, say something, so we can do something. You did see that slide up there. But look, when I said it was 3 people, excuse me, I'm not downplaying that in the slightest, but there were several houses and I think over at least a dozen vehicles, I think, that were hit by gunfire on top of that. When you have pop-up parties where hundreds of people just seem to gather based on a quick snap or whatever social media is used to show up, and then you get them in droves where the streets are blocked, the alleys are blocked, and in between houses are blocked. It's a little difficult logistically for officers to deal with that because there was private property concerns. You just can't go traipse it in unless there's danger, and we can't predict that. Now, and I will tell you that the gunshots were still going off when the officers were there. They're yelling on the radio, and that will all come out in time through the investigation, but they're yelling on the radio, and who knows if they weren't being aimed at. We don't even know that right now.
Can you walk through that point where officers started showing up at the scene, and you talked about how people were not allowing medics and officers to go? Were people actually blocking them, or can you walk through how that worked with the first few, or how in general how it worked?
Well, Sergeant Hines is the lead investigator on this. I just know from his perspective and from our shift briefs that we receive that not only the amount of people that were there, but the people that had the victims surrounded. And we could not get there, and they were forcibly not letting us get to them. Whatever that reason was, I don't know, it's irrelevant. We are there to help somebody, to try to save a life.
The victims were on the ground, I assume?
Yes.
And they weren't allowing police and medics to get to them.
Right. People had to forcibly be pushed back by our officers. We also instituted other dispersion methods to move people, not just the pushing and shoving them out of the way. I do know one person, juvenile, was detained for disorderly consumption and several other things, but that person was released to their parent.
Once you made contact, did people disperse from that point, or was this?
No, officers still had to be used, like I said, the 30-plus cars that were there and detectives to give you a visual, almost like wedge their way so they could get the ambulance in and other medics in there, let alone the officers.
About how long did the scene stay that way, just so people?
Sorry, you know, by chance.
I don't have an exact time frame. It did take some time to get there, get those people out of there.
Yeah, I mean, judging by body camera footage, it is 30, 45 minutes. And that's in the emergency state that we were still in. Again, when the shots fired, people started leaving, right? They started running and driving away, but that in itself created a caterpillar effect where cars could not get out because everybody was going in different directions, driving between houses and whatever. And then there were obviously those who stayed and for whatever reason they had and whatever influence they had, again, liquid or other influence, to try to stop our officers from attending to people that need to be tended to.
Large crowds, is that a safety concern for your own officers just trying to respond?
And look, we had large parties all over the city. Again, I gave you a couple of the shot spotter alerts that we received, 30, 40, 70, and then in this case 100 some rounds. And I know now the city, but the county and other places too. I don't know of any of the other ones that resulted in 3 people being shot.
Is this kind of situation causing you to explore any kind of laws, any type of ordinances, anything like that related to large parties, to resisting people, not allowing people to get cared for, or is that going to be part of the investigation?
So, yeah, I mean, two answers. Yes, when it comes to the criminal matter, absolutely. Once we confirm in some cases, identify in other cases, and then confirm. Those will be forwarded to the prosecutor's office. Whether the prosecutor decides to charge or not, that's the prosecutor's office. But I know that we, based on probable cause, we will make arrests for the people that interfere with us doing our duties. That was not the appropriate place and time. We were trying to tend to the people that were down, number one, and then number two, disperse the crowd so nobody else got hurt or killed. So the second part of that, we do have a nuisance abatement officer. We do have an intel unit. So we keep very close eyes and tabs on problem locations. And again, if somebody fires or discharges a firearm in the city, when we catch them, they will also be issued a $2,500 citation. So that's on top of everything else. So whether or not the prosecutor wants to prosecute is irrelevant. They still have to deal with our city ordinance for discharging a firearm in the city. Again, these are all case-by-case basis. If it's determined there's self-defense measures involved or whatever, and that again is working with the prosecutor's office and our city legal team, then we typically won't move forward on that process. But a citation will be issued nonetheless, at the bare minimum.
13 guns at a party this large, that we know of. Underage drinking, I assume?
Yep. Yes.
Young people under 18 carrying guns?
Well, that part I don't know about, but I do know that, again, based on body camera, my 35 years experience, and talking to some of the officers and investigators, absolutely. When I say teens, 18, 19, but there were some even younger than 17, I think up to 14, or down to 14 were involved. And in my opinion, my observation, yes, intoxication by drinking or other avenues.
So what is that saying to you? What does that tell you when you see that? When you see all the stuff people have been talking about gun violence and carrying guns? What does this tell you?
So you're talking a dad and a grandfather, so it's a little different. I may have a different perspective, but again, nobody's exempt. But like, we need to know what our kids are doing. I don't know how difficult that can be. I know people have said before, well, you're finger pointing or whatever. Well, then if that's what it is, then that's what it is, and I am finger pointing. Know where your kids are. Be in their business. Check their rooms. Check their backpacks. Check their cars. You're paying the insurance or you're paying on the vehicle, whatever. You have every right to be doing that, and you should be doing that. They're your kids, and I'd much rather have parents do that than trying to come to us or somewhere else to try to pay for a funeral.
Can you kind of talk about, some of the curfews, that are in place, or just kind of, reiterate?
Well, it was, 1:20 in the morning, so that curfew, again, that was the least of our concerns right there, and I'm not downplaying that whatsoever, but our major concern at that point was to get help to the people that needed it and make sure nobody else got hurt or killed, including our officers. So I'm trying to paint you a picture, but I really can't, of the mayhem that ensued out there, which typically happens in the cases when we have like this, this many people, and I don't know what sparked it, but typically somebody said something they probably shouldn't have said, or regretted that they said, or maybe not regretted that they said, and then words were exchanged, and then gunfire is exchanged. 13 known different guns. And over 130 casings, projectiles from houses and vehicles, this stuff as well. And we're working. They started working first thing in the morning in our ballistics lab. I contacted the ATF, so bringing in the feds, whatever it takes. But you have that many people. Like I said, I gave you a bare minimum. I think the number was 26. But you see 100. That's 200 people that know what happened out there, at least.
I'll just add here, just to clarify, we have the systems, going to the last two questions, we have the systems in place. Right, we have our officers arriving on scene quickly, there to help. We have our investigators who are doing well above the national average in solving homicides. I don't know exactly how we compare on non-fatal shootings, but have to imagine if we're doing as well in non-fatal shootings better than many departments do on homicides. So our investigators are doing their job, making sure that we hold the violent offenders accountable. And what we need is the community to come forward with information so that we can continue to get violent offenders off the streets. Guns was mentioned too. We know that having guns get in the wrong hands, children who aren't responsible to have those weapons. Obviously, that's something we need to work on. You've heard from us a number of times for common sense measures to get or keep guns out of the wrong hands. But these other measures that could be mentioned, whether it's parks or bars or others, you're trying to get at the issue. The core of the issue is violent offenders, and we know, this community knows, and we know oftentimes who the largest, the biggest violent offenders are. The question is, can we hold them accountable as a city, as a society? And so that is where the information is critical, so that we can go through our justice system and hold these offenders to account and get them off the streets. So the system, the pieces are in place. We just need the community to come forward and provide the information necessary so that they work. And we did give you a preview of the second quarterly public safety update for those who cover just on shooting. We'll give the full stats. The second quarter just ended a few days ago, but you got a sneak peek preview of what we were encouraged by until this incident. I think it's also important to note that we do have some of these violent offenders are coming from outside South Bend. So this isn't necessarily just a plea to South Bend to stop being violent. It's also a plea to make sure that those who care about our city, who love our city, are sharing the information necessary, because these folks are coming from the outside and raising havoc in our neighborhoods.
The buffer zone law that just went into effect on the 1st, and people can't come up to investigators within 25 feet, is that something that could be helpful in situations like this in the future, and this is just too chaotic of a scene to worry about that in the moment, or?
Yeah, so you have to put yourself in the officer's shoes trying to deal with the situation at the time. And you're absolutely right, there is the buffer zone, but like I said, there was one juvenile that was a result of that buffer zone, but JJC would not accept this juvenile, so the juvenile was released to their parent. But again, that's like a last resort. We want to help before we have to do anything else, and that was critically interrupted.
Anything else? All right. Thank you, everybody.